James, so we're getting ready for Mexico. Big conversation, probably more broadcasters than ever, is my understanding. What is the conversation at Mexico, and what, moreover, is sort of the conversation for broadcasters in terms of monetizing, video on demand and live video streaming?
Sure. So I actually think the conversation is pretty similar to the conversation in the US, and the themes are very much the same. So the first one is around the concept of how am I going to unify my inventory to be able to get greater scale. So things are moving at light speed, as we know, in the last 12 months, and I'm sure in the next 12 months they'll be very different again. But the theme of how do I create scale by bringing together my digital video inventory, regardless of what screen it is, because the screen and wire is simply a detail. How do I bring my digital video alongside my set-top box VOD inventory, where the exciting news on our side is what we've been doing, bringing dynamic ad insertion capability into the living room, into the set-top box, and that's something where in many instances the Europeans are in a really good position as well. And then ultimately, how do you bring that together with linear as well? So the goal for the broadcasters is ultimately unifying that inventory so you're able to offer scale to the buyers on quality content in an environment which is super engaging. So I think that's the first big theme. I'd say the second one is around measurement, which has been talked about a ton. But really, if you're going to solve for unifying across different screens, then you need to be able to kind of federate measurement across those screens. And what I mean by that is you may have different measurement providers in a set-top box environment versus on an OTT device versus in another environment. How do you stitch all those together? So to the buyer and the negotiation between the buyer and the seller, it's just a single buy, but we can make all that work.
Where does that stand now?
It's complicated. It's very fragmented right now. And I think the danger is that the negotiation is really focused on either the pushing a specific measurement provider, because our belief is a single measurement provider isn't necessarily going to be the path forward. I think there's going to be a small set of buyers that are able to, a small set of measurement providers that are going to need to get stitched together across screens, plus buyers are increasingly wanting to use their proprietary data sets as well, so that needs to get considered. But right now it's pretty fragmented. I think Nielsen, Comscore, Rentrack, at least on set-top box, are doing a good job starting to extend across those screens, but our job is to accelerate that stitching in a kind of federated measurement model to enable larger scale buys to take place across that unified set of inventory.
So let's talk a little bit about FreeWheel's business, how you guys are growing, particularly in the U.S. market, and sort of what are those areas of growth, what's going on, and how might things roll out over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so our focus remains the same, and it's not going to change, and that is we want to focus on a very specific set of clients, which are the broadcasters, the MVPDs, and a small number of digital pure plays who are video centric. And that's how our platform's architected, and that's we specifically want to keep that client base small, so we're able to solve for some very big problems for them. So again, the first one is about solving for that unification piece. So our first big move there was what we're doing in partnership with Comcast and also Canoe in terms of impression level, dynamic ad insertion into set-top box environment. That is so important because it opens up a large amount of long-form premium video inventory for the programmers to be able to monetize. And why that's important for the buyers is as buyer concern increases about inventory sets that may not be considered premium. Set-top box is a fraud-free, 100% viewable, because it's on a TV, in a lean-back, engaged environment on long-form programmer content. It's the best stuff there is. So opening that up is actually really important for both the buy side and the sell side. So that's kind of step one. Step two is what we're doing to start to increasingly bring together digital video world with the linear world as well. So more to come on that, but that's the kind of next step on the journey. So yeah, that's our major focus right now.
And finally, the addressable. We talked a lot about that in Cannes, and there's a lot of interest. It's kind of small. It's kind of starting. How might addressable to the cable box, the satellite box, develop, in your opinion, over the next 6 months, 12 months?
Yeah. So I think addressable, i.e., as you define it with regard to the set-top box, is one use of targeted advertising. I think it's still very small, but I think it's obviously super interesting, being it's in a linear environment. I think the broader conversation, which is regardless of whether it's to a set-top box or to another screen, is how is data going to be used in balanced ways beyond traditional measurement, where buyers are able to use proprietary data sets to be able to reserve inventory on quality programmer inventory, and execute that regardless if it's through to a set-top box or onto an OTT device or elsewhere. The tide will rise all boats if those executions are done in a way where there is shared risk and shared transparency in terms of the buyer being able to articulate the segments they're going after, and the seller having their inventory positions protected. And that's a good outcome, because it will mean that brand advertisers will be able to use the incredible richness of data that they've got to be able to buy on quality content in kind of protected, engaged environments. What a bad outcome looks like, though, is that deals start to get cut whereby the programmers aren't privy to the data segments that the buyer is looking to use, or specific ad tech providers are being forced onto the programmer. That's not good outcome, and it's not a good outcome for the buyers or the sellers, because ultimately it's going to continue to fragment the buying and selling. You're not going to get scale.